Join the conversation.
Join the conversation.
You're with CapeTalk.
22 minutes past 4 o'clock, time for the book review. The thriller is a new one by American thriller writer Karin Slaughter. She's written in excess of 20 books, some of which have featured somebody called Will Trent, who is quite inept when it comes to social relationships. He is not able to read terribly well. He's dyslexic, and he grew up in a very, very troubled home. Well, it wasn't a home, it was an orphanage, and there was a lot of violence in his life, which has made him very untrusting of human relationships, but has made him quite good at his job, which in the world of this thriller, After That Night, is an investigator with the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, and he has found a love. And she is a doctor called Sarah Linton, who also works for the Georgia authorities as a forensic investigator. And this goes back to 15 years before the time span of the current novel, when Sarah Linton was raped. She was having a celebratory night out as a newly qualified doctor, and she was raped. And a series of rapes are starting to happen in the current period, and there are very disturbing links between the current rapes and the assault on her 15 years before. And there also seems to be a link to a group of very unpleasant medical professionals who were graduating at roughly the same time as she was. And off the books, because neither she nor Will Trent and his partner have permission to investigate this, because it's not obvious exactly what they are investigating, and they start to find some very, very disturbing things, and it moves to its conclusion. It's not an easy read, simply because she doesn't sugarcoat any of the dreadful realities that women face through sexual assault. She's pretty in your face about these things, and my view as a reader is that that is absolutely right. We have pussyfooted, mollycoddled this, we haven't called it what it is enough, and we haven't called out the men who use their patriarchal power to subjugate women sexually and in other ways. We haven't done that nearly enough, and so the plague continues. So there are some pages which are quite discomforting to read, but she tells a good story, and she creates believable characters with decent dialogue. Karin Slaughter, After That Night. I don't often read speculative fiction, science fiction, call it what you will, but I was advised by a friend of mine whose views on books I tend to trust, to have a go at A.G. Riddle's book, Quantum Radio. And A.G. Riddle has written the Atlantis trilogy, the Extinction Files, the Long Winter trilogy. So well practiced, much published in this field. And the plot is quite complicated, but essentially it is about a researcher at CERN who, at a time when they're doing Large Hadron Collider, they're doing an experiment where he gets a sense that some kind of weird wrinkle in the universe has happened. And he writes a paper about it, and then mayhem ensues. People are trying to kill him. They're trying to kill the people that he's close to. And it involves alternative universes, counterfactual histories, and so on. And there is a merry band of 4 misfits, including the researcher, who navigate between the histories, between the worlds, and try to influence things for good rather than for bad. It's a little longer, I think, than it should be. It comes in at roughly 500 pages. But again, like much of his writing, it seems that it's obvious that this is the first of what's going to be a trilogy, or maybe a 4-5 book series. So there's, I suppose, a fair amount of exposition which is necessary to set the scene for this book and for the books to come. But the science, a lot of the science, is very real and very, very intriguing. And he writes about what is currently known to be and what is currently known to be possible in the not too distant future, and then speculating what could it be in 10, 15 years' time. So I found the science aspects of it and the adventure aspects of it engaging. It's called Quantum Radio by A.G. Riddle. And then again, coincidentally, the sort of rough themes of the non-fiction work coincide with the themes of the thriller. And this is a book by somebody who is Mexican by birth, but who is a teacher of creative writing and a professor at Houston University in Texas, Cristina Rivera Garza. And the book is called Liliana's Invincible Summer. And it's such a wonderful reclamation of a lost life. Her sister was murdered in a town in Mexico in 1990. And the writer, Cristina Rivera Garza, just never made peace with that murder. It was known that her partner, her romantic partner at the time, was guilty of the murder, but while police were investigating, and not terribly enthusiastically, because, crimes of passion, Mexico 1990, come on, she probably deserved it. So they weren't looking too hard into this, and the man who is thought to have done the murder disappears. And the author of this book goes to Mexico in 2019. She wants to find her sister's criminal file. She's not able to find it. It's just disappeared. And it's basically like her sister's life has disappeared. So she decides to reclaim her sister's life and bring her back to life so that her death makes more sense. So she brings us into her world with accounts of Liliana's summer, the summer before she was murdered, letters, notebooks, personal narratives from family and friends. Lily wanted to get out of this relationship, but couldn't. The guy was very persistent. Angel kept on insisting that she was his girlfriend. I never witnessed any violence between them. And this is what a lot of people said, but when pressed, they were forced to concede that there was always something unhealthy about the hold that this man had on this young woman. So there's a wide variety of characters, and they're all threaded together by Liliana. And the last day of Liliana's life is located within the context of a continuing plague of femicide. There are 20 femicides a day in Mexico. It's now called femicide, which in 1990 was just called a crime of passion, She went too far. She provoked him. She pushed him too far. So, not right to kill her, but come on, That was the attitude. It's not the attitude anymore, but femicide continues to the tune of a score a day. With the care of the archaeologist who touches without damaging, who dusts without breaking, my intention is to open and preserve my sister's writing, at the same time and recontextualize it in a reading from the present. Neither Liliana nor those of us who loved her had at our disposal then the insight, the language that would have allowed us to identify the signs of danger. This blindness, which was never voluntary but social, has contributed to the murder of hundreds of thousands of women in Mexico and beyond. Because this, in the particular, is a Mexican story, but in the general, it is a story of what women have to endure across the globe. So it is a really moving memoir, and also at the same time an absolute in-your-face appraisal of violence against women in Mexico and elsewhere. It's called Liliana's Invincible Summer by Cristina Rivera Garza, Garza.